Let's water it and see if it grows in life." He laughed at the gardener, and she did the unthinkable. Melissa Johnson wiped her tears discreetly as she continued tending to the roses in the corporate garden. At 45, she had grown accustomed to daily humiliations, but today had been different. The commercial director, Brandon Miller, had poured cold water over her head in front of other employees, laughing loudly as he uttered those words that now echoed in her mind. What he didn't know was that she had been keeping a secret for 20 years. "Melissa, are you okay?" asked Margaret, the cleaning lady, who always showed her kindness. "I'm fine, Mrs. Margaret," Melissa replied, forcing a smile. Margaret was 67 and had worked at the company for over 2 decades. She knew all the secrets of that place and always treated Melissa like a daughter. "That man is no good. Life will catch up with him one day," the older woman murmured, shaking her head. Melissa kept pruning the flowers, trying not to think about what had happened, but Brandon's words hammered in her head. She looked at her dirt-stained hands and sighed. If only he knew who she really was. That night, in her small apartment in Park Slope, New York City, Melissa opened her bedroom closet. At the back, wrapped in yellowed plastic from years of storage, was her business administration diploma from Wharton Business School, graduated 22 years ago, with honors. She picked up the diploma carefully, as if it were a fragile treasure. Memories flooded back, fresh out of school, full of dreams, ready to conquer the corporate world. But then her mother, Mrs. Elizabeth, began showing the first signs of Alzheimer's. "Mum was everything to me," she whispered to herself, remembering the 15 years she spent caring for her mother until she passed. By the time Mrs. Elizabeth was gone, Melissa was already 45. The job market wasn't kind to women her age. With no recent experience in the field, doors closed one after another. That was when she got the job as a gardener at Parker Consulting Group, a business consulting firm. The next day, Melissa arrived at work early. She always liked to admire the garden before the daily rush began. It was in those moments that she found peace, watching how each plant responded to her care. "Well, well, the Queen of Flowers is early today," a mocking voice said behind her. Melissa turned and saw Brandon approaching in his crisp grey suit, a smirk on his lips. He carried his leather briefcase and a steaming cup of coffee. "Good morning, Mr. Brandon," she replied politely. "Still wet from yesterday's shower." He laughed at his own joke. "Hope it worked. Maybe now you'll grow in life, huh?" Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now back to the story. Melissa felt her blood boil but kept her composure. Brandon continued toward the building, whistling a pop song playing on the radio. "One day," she murmured to herself. Throughout the day, while tending to the plants, Melissa watched the company's activity through the glass windows. Brandon was in an important meeting with the company's president, Mr. William Parker, a 72-year-old man who had founded the business 40 years ago. Through the window, she could see Brandon gesturing animatedly, presenting charts and spreadsheets. But Melissa noticed something no one else did. The numbers in the presentation were wrong, completely wrong. "How is this possible?" she whispered, adjusting her work glasses. She had studied business. She could read financial reports better than most. And that presentation was full of basic calculation and data interpretation errors. During lunch, Melissa sat on a garden bench with her homemade lunch. Margaret approached as she always did. "Melissa, can I tell you something?" the older woman said, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "Of course, Mrs. Margaret." "Last night, when I was cleaning Brandon's office, I found some papers in the trash. They looked important." "What kind of papers?" "I don't read those number things too well, but there were some charts and a letter from an accountant saying there were problems with the reports." Melissa felt her heart race. If Brandon was hiding report issues, it explained the mistakes she'd noticed in the presentation. "Do you still have those papers?" "I kept them in my closet. Thought it was strange to throw away something that seemed important." That afternoon, Margaret showed the documents to Melissa. They were printed emails between Brandon and the company accountant, George Wilson. The accountant warned about inconsistencies in the numbers Brandon presented at executive meetings. Mr. Brandon, I must alert you again about the errors in the quarterly projection calculations. The numbers presented do not match the company's financial reality, Melissa read quietly. And look here, Margaret pointed to another document. The accountant says if Mr. William finds out, there could be serious trouble. Melissa carefully examined all the papers. Brandon was manipulating the numbers to appear more competent than he really was. Worse, he was putting the company at financial risk. Mrs. Margaret, can I keep these papers? Of course, dear, you're the only person I trust here. That night, Melissa spent hours studying the documents. She took out her old laptop and began redoing the calculations. Within hours, she identified not only the errors, but the consequences they could bring to the company. If this continues, Parker Consulting Group will have serious problems in 6 months, she murmured, finishing her own corrective spreadsheets. Over the next few days, Melissa watched meetings more closely through the windows. Brandon kept presenting incorrect numbers, and Mr. Williams seemed to trust him completely. That's when she got an idea. A dangerous idea, but one that might work. Melissa created an anonymous email under the name Concerned Analyst and sent a message to Brandon, subtly pointing out some of the errors in his latest presentation. Dear Mr. Brandon, I noticed some minor discrepancies in the quarterly projection calculations. Attached are some corrections that may be helpful. Sincerely, an employee who wants the company to succeed. The next day, she watched Brandon check the email on his computer. He looked confused and a little nervous. During the afternoon meeting, he used the exact corrections Melissa had sent. It worked, she whispered, feeling a mix of satisfaction and nerves. Over the following week, Melissa kept sending anonymous corrections. Brandon began relying on them, though he still didn't know who his mysterious helper was. You've been different, Melissa, Margaret commented during lunch. More lively. I've been thinking about some things, Mrs. Margaret. What kind of things? Melissa hesitated before answering. Margaret had always been like a mother to her, especially after Mrs. Elizabeth left. Do you believe people can change their lives even after 40? Of course I do. My own daughter started college at 50. Now she's a teacher. It's never too late if you're determined. What if the person had to face someone very powerful? Margaret looked at Melissa carefully. Dear, are you planning something? Maybe, replied Melissa with a mysterious smile. That afternoon, while watering the plants near the meeting room window, Melissa overheard a conversation that changed everything. Brandon was on the phone with someone speaking softly, but she managed to catch a few key words. Don't worry, the old man trusts me completely. The numbers? Leave it to me, I know how to present them. Once I take over as president of the company, things will be different. Melissa felt a chill. Brandon was plotting something against Mr. William. She needed to act, and fast. That night she researched the company further and discovered something surprising. Mr. William Parker had no children and had always said he would leave the company to someone he trusted when he retired. Brandon clearly thought it would be him. But if he's lying about the numbers, Melissa murmured. She decided it was time to take the next step. She sent a more direct email to Brandon, suggesting an in-person meeting. Mr. Brandon, I believe it would be beneficial for us to meet in person to discuss some important matters regarding the financial reports. I'm available for dinner tomorrow at 8 p.m. at the Capitol Grill on Madison Avenue. Sincerely, your anonymous colleague. Brandon replied in less than an hour, accepting the invitation. Melissa knew he was too curious to refuse. The next day, Melissa missed work for the first time in 2 years. She spent the day preparing. She went to the mall to buy an elegant outfit, had her hair done at the salon, and even bought subtle makeup. You look beautiful, dear, said the hairdresser, a kind woman named Betty. Special occasion. You could say that, Melissa replied, studying her transformation in the mirror. She barely recognized herself. The woman staring back didn't look like a gardener. She looked like a successful executive. At exactly 8 p.m., Melissa arrived at the Capitol Grill. It was an upscale place, frequented by business people and politicians. She felt a little out of place at first, but reminded herself of her education and all the business dinners she had attended early in her career. Brandon was already at a table, anxiously watching the entrance. When he saw Melissa, he nearly knocked over his wine glass. You're the gardener," he stammered, completely shocked. "Good evening, Mr. Brandon," Melissa said calmly, taking her seat. "My name is Melissa Johnson, business administration graduate from Wharton, with a specialization in financial management." Brandon was silent for a few seconds, processing the information. "Is this some kind of joke?" he finally asked. "No joke. I'm the one who's been sending corrections to your reports these past few weeks." But you're the gardener." "Yes, I'm a gardener, and I'm also an administrator. A person can be many things, Mr. Brandon." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Brandon tried to compose himself, taking a large sip of wine. "All right, let's say I believe you. What do you want?" "I want to talk about the issues in the company's financial reports and about your true intentions." "What intentions? What are you talking about?" Melissa pulled a folder from her bag and placed it on the table. Inside were copies of all the emails between Brandon and the accountant, along with the corrected spreadsheets she had prepared. "I'm talking about how you've been manipulating the numbers to deceive Mr. William, and about your plans to take over as president of the company." Brandon's face turned red with anger. "You have no proof of anything, and who's going to believe a gardener?" "Mr. William will believe it when he sees this evidence." "And when you find out it was a gardener who discovered something the company's commercial director couldn't even notice?" Brandon stood abruptly from the table. "You don't know who you're dealing with. I can make your life a living hell." "My life is already hell, Mr. Brandon. Every day you humiliate me, treat me like I'm less than nothing. The difference is now I have a way to defend myself. What do you want? Money. I can give you money to disappear and never speak of this again." Melissa shook her head. "I don't want your money. I want an opportunity." "What kind of opportunity?" "I want to work in the company's administrative department. I want a chance to prove my competence." Brandon laughed loudly, drawing attention from other tables. "You're out of your mind. You think I'll give a better job to someone blackmailing me?" "It's not blackmail, Mr. Brandon. It's a work proposal. I keep helping fix the errors in the reports, and you give me a chance in administration. Everyone wins. And if I refuse, then tomorrow Mr. William will receive a copy of all these documents, along with a detailed analysis of the losses the company could face if these mistakes continue." Brandon fell silent for a long moment, clearly weighing his options. "You have 1 week," he finally said. "I'll think about your proposal." "I'm sure you'll make the right decision," Melissa replied, tucking the documents back into her folder. When Melissa arrived at work the next day, the atmosphere was different. Brandon watched her with an expression mixing anger and fear. Other employees noticed the tension, but didn't understand what was happening. "How was dinner last night?" Margaret asked with a sly smile. "Very productive, Mrs. Margaret. I think things are about to change around here." Throughout the day, Melissa noticed Brandon was more nervous than usual. He made several mistakes during a presentation for important clients, and she saw Mr. William speaking seriously with him afterward. By late afternoon, Brandon approached Melissa in the garden. "We need to talk," he said, glancing around to ensure they were alone. "I'm listening." "I accept your proposal. I'll speak to Mr. William about creating a position in administration." Melissa's heart raced, but she kept her expression calm. "Good decision, Mr. Brandon. But you have to keep helping me with the reports, and you can't say a word about what you found. As long as you hold up your end of the deal, I'll hold up mine." The following week, Mr. William called Melissa into his office. It was the first time she'd entered that elegant space, lined with bookshelves and framed landscapes of the United States on the walls. "Melissa, Brandon mentioned you have a background in business administration. Is that true?" "Yes, Mr. William. I graduated from Wharton 22 years ago." "Then why are you working as a gardener?" Melissa took a deep breath before answering. "I had to care for my mother when she was ill. By the time she passed, I'd been out of the administrative job market too long. It was hard finding opportunities." Mr. William nodded understandingly. I see. And now you'd like to return to the field? Very much, sir. It's always been my dream to work for a company like this. Brandon suggested you start as an administrative assistant in the finance department. Are you interested? Yes, Mr. William. Very interested. Good. You can start Monday. The starting salary will be 3 times your gardener's pay, with a 3-month probation period. Melissa had to hold back tears. Thank you, Mr. William. You won't regret this. I'm sure I won't. And Melissa? Yes, sir? Keep taking care of the garden too, at least until we find another gardener. You did a wonderful job there. In her first days as an administrative assistant, Melissa worked double shifts. In the morning, she tended to the garden, and in the afternoon, she worked in the office. It was exhausting, but she felt fulfilled like she hadn't in years. You're glowing, Margaret remarked. Truly happy. I am, Mrs. Margaret. For the first time in a long while, I feel like I'm on the right path. Melissa quickly stood out in the finance department. Her experience and knowledge impressed colleagues and superiors alike. She could spot problems others missed and propose practical, efficient solutions. Brandon, on the other hand, seemed increasingly uneasy. He relied on Melissa's corrections for his reports, yet he watched her professional growth within the company with unease. How are you adjusting to the new job? He asked one day, trying to sound casual. Very well, thank you. It's like riding a bike, isn't it? You never forget. And the reports? Do you still have time to help me? For now, yes. But as my workload increases, we might need to rethink our arrangement. Brandon visibly tensed. Rethink how? Maybe it's time you learn to do the calculations correctly yourself. I can teach you, if you'd like. No, that won't be necessary. Let's keep things as they are. But things didn't stay as they were. Melissa continued to excel and was soon promoted to financial analyst. With more responsibilities and access to broader information, she uncovered troubling details. Parker Consulting Group was facing real financial difficulties, not just because of Brandon's mistakes, but due to deeper structural issues. The firm was losing clients to more agile, modern competitors. Melissa spent an entire night crunching the numbers and reached an alarming conclusion. Without drastic changes to the company's strategy, it could go bankrupt in less than a year. I need to speak with Mr. William, she murmured to herself. But first, she wanted absolute certainty in her analysis. She spent the weekend reviewing every figure, creating projections and alternative scenarios. When she finished, she was sure the situation was critical. On Monday, Melissa requested an urgent meeting with Mr. William. What's so important, Melissa? He asked, noting her serious expression. Mr. William, I need to show you something crucial about the company's financial state. She presented her full analysis, complete with detailed charts and projections. Mr. William grew paler as he grasped the gravity of the situation. This is possible? He asked, his voice trembling. I'm afraid so, sir. But there are solutions. I've prepared restructuring proposals that could turn things around. But how did this go unnoticed by the other analysts? By Brandon? Melissa hesitated before answering. It was the moment to decide whether to reveal everything or protect Brandon. Mr. William, there are some things I need to tell you about the reports you've been receiving. And then she told him everything. Brandon's mistakes, the anonymous corrections she'd made, the documents she'd found. Mr. William listened in silence, his expression growing more disbelieving. You're telling me Brandon has been submitting incorrect reports for months, and you've been secretly fixing them? Yes, sir. At first I considered alerting you directly, but I wasn't sure you'd believe me. Why tell me now? Because the company's situation is dire, and you need accurate information to make the right decisions. Mr. William fell silent for a long time, absorbing everything. Melissa, you saved my company. If you hadn't discovered this, you would have figured it out eventually, but maybe it would have been too late. I need to think about all this. Can you give me some time? Of course, Mr. William. Whatever you need, I'll be here for you. That afternoon, Melissa saw Brandon being called into a private meeting with Mr. William. The conversation lasted over 2 hours, And when Brandon left the office, his face was red with anger. He walked right past Melissa without saying a word, but she could feel the hatred in his eyes. The next day, Brandon didn't show up for work, and by the end of the week it was announced that he had been reassigned to another position in the company at a smaller branch outside New York City. Was he fired? Margaret asked discreetly. Transferred, Melissa replied. Mr. William is a very generous man. With Brandon's departure, Melissa was promoted to financial manager, a position she never imagined she'd hold when she started as a gardener. But the real transformation was yet to come. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. In the following weeks, Melissa implemented her restructuring proposals. She modernized financial processes, renegotiated contracts with suppliers, and created strategies to win back lost clients. The results were impressive. Within 3 months, the company wasn't just out of the red, it was growing again. William was amazed. Melissa, you're not just an excellent manager, you're a born leader, he said during a meeting. Thank you, Mr. William. I'm just doing my job. No, you're doing much more than that. You're saving this company, which I built over 40 years. Then Mr. William made an offer that would change Melissa's life forever. Melissa, I'm thinking of retiring in the next few years. I need someone I trust to take over as president of the company. Will you accept being my successor? Melissa was speechless. It was more than she had ever dreamed of. Mr. William, I don't know what to say. Say yes. You've proven you have the competence, integrity, and vision for the future. Those are exactly the qualities this company needs. I accept, sir, with great pride and responsibility. The news of Melissa's promotion spread quickly through the company. The reaction was surprisingly positive. Employees respected her work and her journey, and many felt inspired by her story. From gardener to president, a colleague remarked, that only happens in the movies. It happens when someone has skill and determination, another replied. Margaret was beaming with pride. I always knew you were special, dear. Always knew. Thank you for believing in me, Mrs. Margaret. You were a big part of this journey. So now you'll be my boss, she joked. I'll be your friend, just like always. But not everything was smooth sailing. Some long-time employees questioned Melissa's rapid rise. There were whispers about favoritism and doubts about her ability to lead an entire company. Melissa knew she'd have to prove herself every day, and she was ready for it. Her first decision as future president was to restructure the HR department, creating training programs for employees who wanted to grow professionally. No one should be held back by lack of opportunity, she said during a company-wide meeting. If you have skill and dedication, you deserve a chance to advance. The program was a success. Employees from different departments began specializing and taking on new responsibilities. The company became more dynamic and efficient. Melissa also maintained her care for the garden, which was now under the responsibility of a new gardener, a young man named Tyler, whom she personally trained. Plants teach us patience, she told Tyler. They grow at their own pace, but with the right care, they always bloom. Did you learn that when you worked here as a gardener? I learned that patience and dedication always bear fruit, whether tending to plants or people. 6 months later, Mr. William officially announced his retirement, and Melissa formally assumed the presidency of Parker Consulting Group. The inauguration ceremony was simple, but moving. I never thought a humiliation could turn into an opportunity, Melissa said in her speech. But I've learned that how we respond to challenges defines who we are and how far we can go. In the audience, Margaret wept with emotion. Beside her was Tyler, the new gardener, and several other employees who had grown close to Melissa during her journey. But the biggest surprise came a few days after the inauguration. Melissa received an unexpected call. "Hello, may I speak with President Melissa Johnson?" said a male voice on the other end. "Speaking. Who is this?" "My name is Brandon Miller. I believe we've met." Melissa was stunned. Brandon had completely disappeared after his transfer, and she never expected to hear from him again. "What do you want, Mr. Brandon?" "I'd like to speak with you in person." There's something important I need to say. About what? About everything that happened. May I come to see you? Melissa hesitated. Part of her wanted to refuse, but her curiosity won out. You may come, but I only have 15 minutes to spare. An hour later, Brandon was in Melissa's office. He looked different, more humble, less arrogant. His clothes were simpler, and there was something in his demeanor that suggested a profound change. I came to apologize, he said bluntly. Melissa studied him in silence for a moment. Apologize for what, exactly? For everything. For the humiliations, the disrespect, for underestimating you. I was wrong, completely wrong. What made you change your mind? Brandon let out a deep sigh. The transfer to the countryside was eye-opening. There I had to work with ordinary people, like you were when you were a gardener, and I realized competence has nothing to do with social status or appearance. And how are you now? Working as a junior analyst, earning a third of what I used to, but I've learned to value honest work. What's the real reason for your visit? I wanted you to know that I deeply admire what you've achieved. And I'd like to ask for a chance to work here again. Melissa was surprised by the request. A chance after everything that happened? I know I don't deserve it, but I've changed, truly, and I'd like to learn from you. Melissa fell silent for a long time, considering the proposal. I'll think about your request, Mr. Brandon, but if I decide to give you this opportunity, it will be on my terms. Any terms you set. First, you'd start as an intern with an intern's salary. Second, you'd have to complete a 6-month probationary period. Third, any display of arrogance or disrespect would be grounds for immediate dismissal. I accept all your conditions. And lastly, you'd work directly with me so I can personally oversee your progress. It would be an honor. Melissa nodded slowly. Very well. You may start on Monday, but remember, this is your last chance. Thank you, President Melissa. You won't regret it. I hope not. When Brandon left the room, Melissa was alone with her thoughts. Margaret entered shortly after, bringing a coffee. I heard Brandon was here. What did he want? A second chance. And you're going to give it to him? I am. Everyone deserves a chance to change, Mrs. Margaret. Even after everything he did, especially because of it. If I held on to resentment, I'd be just like him. Margaret smiled proudly. That's why you're a true leader. In the following weeks, Brandon proved he had truly changed. He worked diligently, accepted constructive criticism, and showed genuine interest in learning. His humility surprised all the employees. He seems like a completely different person, commented Tyler the gardener. People can change when they acknowledge their mistakes, replied Melissa. Do you still hold any grudge against him? No. Resentment only hurts the one who carries it. I'd rather use that energy to build something good. 3 months later, Melissa promoted Brandon to a full-time junior analyst. He had proven his worth and his transformation was genuine. During the informal promotion ceremony, Brandon gave an emotional speech. I've learned that respect isn't earned by humiliating others, but by respecting everyone. President Melissa taught me that true leadership is about lifting people up, not tearing them down. And what else have you learned? Asked Melissa. That competence can come from anywhere, that the wisest gardener can be more valuable than the most arrogant executive, and that second chances are precious gifts that should be honored. A year after Melissa took over, Parker Consulting Group was unrecognizable. The company had doubled in size, secured important new clients, and become a benchmark in the business consulting market. Melissa implemented innovative HR policies, created social responsibility programs, and established an organizational culture based on mutual respect and valuing every employee. How do you feel looking back at everything that's changed? Asked a journalist during an interview. I feel grateful. Grateful for the hardships that made me stronger, for the people who believed in me, and for the chance to prove that competence knows no social class. What advice would you give to people facing humiliation at work? Never let others define your worth. Prepare, study, and build your skills, and wait for the right moment to show who you really are. What about forgiveness? Have you forgiven those who humiliated you? Forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about our own liberation. When we forgive, we free our hearts for better things. 2 years later, Melissa was in her office reviewing reports when Margaret walked in with tears in her eyes. "Mrs. Margaret, what's wrong?" "Nothing bad, dear. I was just remembering the day you arrived here as a gardener. Who would have thought you'd become the most respected president this company has ever had? And you, my dear friend, remain the wisest person I know. Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you still tend to plants at home?" Melissa smiled. "Every day. They remind me of where I came from and teach me that true growth takes time and care." "And Brandon? How is he?" "He's doing well. He's become one of our best analysts, and more importantly, he's become a better person." "Do you think he truly learned his lesson?" "I've learned that anyone can change, Mrs. Margaret. They just need the will and the right guidance." That same day, Melissa received a call that moved her deeply. "President Melissa, this is Wharton Business School. We'd like to invite you to speak at this year's graduation ceremony." "Me, a speaker?" "Yes. Your story has become an inspiration to many students. We'd love for you to share your experience with the graduates. It would be an honor." On graduation day, Melissa was nervous. It was the first time she'd speak to such a large audience about her journey. But when she took the stage and saw the young, hopeful faces of the graduates, she found her voice. "Dear graduates, I stand before you today not as a successful executive, but as someone who learned that true success isn't about the titles we hold, but the people we become along the way." She shared her full story, graduating at 23, the dreams put on hold, the years caring for her mother, working as a gardener, the humiliations, and finally, the transformation. No matter where you are today or what obstacles you face, what matters is where you want to go and what you're willing to do to get there. But remember, the end doesn't justify the means. Build your success by lifting others up, not pushing them down. The audience rose in a moving, standing ovation. Many students were in tears, touched by her story of perseverance and triumph. After the speech, dozens of young people approached to speak with Melissa. She spent hours talking with each one, offering advice and encouragement. "Ms. Melissa," said a young black woman, "your story gives me hope. Sometimes I feel like I don't belong in this corporate world. You belong wherever your skills are valued, and if they aren't, work to change that place or find one that recognizes your worth." How did you keep hope during the hard years? By remembering that every difficult day was an investment in my future, and by tending to plants, which taught me that growth happens even when we can't see it. 3 years after becoming CEO, Melissa decided to establish the Melissa Johnson Foundation, dedicated to providing professional training for low-income and socially vulnerable individuals. "Why did you create the foundation?" a reporter asked. "Because I realized my story shouldn't be an exception. It should be proof that change is possible when there's opportunity and support." The foundation offered courses in business administration, accounting, computer skills, and other professional training. Partnering with companies, it also secured internships and jobs for graduates. Brandon volunteered to teach at the foundation, a move that surprised many. "Why do you want to teach here?" Melissa asked. "Because I want to give back the second chance I was given, and because I've learned that teaching is another way to keep learning." "Are you sure? It's not mandatory." "I'm sure. This is how I honor the transformation I've lived." Margaret, at 72, also joined the foundation, helping with coordination and offering motherly advice to students. "Mrs. Margaret, you don't have to work anymore," Melissa said. "You could retire in peace. And stop seeing all of you every day. Never. As long as I can help, I will. You're incredible." "No, dear, what's incredible is watching a gardener become a CEO and still keep her heart just as big." 4 years after taking the helm, Melissa was organizing the company's year-end party when she received an unexpected call. "Melissa Johnson?" "Yes, speaking. This is the Entrepreneur of the Year Award Committee. We're pleased to inform you that you've been selected as Entrepreneur of the Year in the Social Transformation category." Melissa was speechless. It was the highest honor a business leader could receive in the country. I don't know what to say. The ceremony is next month. Do you accept the award? I do, but I'd like to share this recognition with my team. Of course, you'll have the chance to do so in your speech. On the day of the ceremony, Melissa was accompanied by Margaret, Brandon, Tyler, and several other employees. When her name was called, she stepped onto the stage with tears in her eyes. This award isn't mine. It belongs to everyone who believed a gardener could be more than she seemed. It belongs to those who taught me that humility and competence go hand in hand. It belongs to the one who showed me that forgiveness is liberating and that second chances transform lives. She looked into the audience and met Margaret's eyes, who was crying with pride. I dedicate this award especially to a 72-year-old woman who taught me that wisdom doesn't come from diplomas, but from a life lived with dignity. Mrs. Margaret, this award is yours too. The audience rose in a moving ovation. Margaret was radiant, waving from the crowd. After the ceremony, reporters surrounded Melissa for interviews. Miss Melissa, what's the greatest lesson you've learned on this journey? That people are more important than positions. That respect is earned through actions, not words. And that we should never underestimate anyone, because we never know what seeds of greatness lie within each person. And what's your next goal? To keep growing not in power but in wisdom, to keep serving not being served, and to keep proving that when we nurture people's dreams, they truly flourish in life. Any final message? Yes. To those going through hard times, don't give up. To those in power, remember it's temporary and should be used to lift others up. And to everyone, never underestimate the transformative power of respect and humility. 5 years later, Melissa was in her office when Tyler, now the company's landscaping supervisor, brought her a bouquet of roses from the garden. "The plants are more beautiful than ever, President," he said. "It's because they're cared for with love," Melissa replied, "just like people." "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Do you still remember that day when Brandon poured water on your head?" Melissa smiled wistfully. "I do, but not with anger. I remember it with gratitude." "Gratitude?" "Yes. Because that was the moment I decided I wouldn't accept being treated as less than I truly was. It was the day I planted the seed of my transformation." "And if you could go back, would you change anything?" "No. Every humiliation strengthened me. Every tear watered my determination. Every no prepared me for the yes that changed my life." That evening, Melissa went down to the garden for her daily walk among the plants. It was a ritual she'd kept since becoming president, a way to remember her roots and stay grounded. Margaret joined her as she always did. "What are you thinking about, dear?" "About how surprising life is, Mrs. Margaret. Who would have thought being humiliated in this garden would be the start of the greatest transformation of my life?" "I would have," Margaret replied with a knowing smile. "I always knew you were special." "How did you know?" "By your eyes. When you were there, kneeling among the flowers, being humiliated, your eyes never lost their dignity. And dignity isn't something you teach. You're either born with it or you're not. You taught me so much about dignity. And you taught me it's never too late to see miracles happen." They walked in silence for a few minutes, admiring the garden Melissa once tended as an employee and now oversaw as president. "Do you know what makes me proudest about your story?" Margaret asked. "What?" "That you didn't seek revenge when you had the power to do so. You chose to lift others up instead of tearing them down." "Revenge only diminishes the one who seeks it, Mrs. Margaret. I'd rather use my energy to build something better." As the sun began to set, they sat on a bench near the roses. It was the same spot where Melissa used to eat lunch when she was a gardener. "Melissa, can I tell you a secret?" Margaret said. "Of course. That day you were humiliated. When I got home, I prayed for God to give you a chance to show who you really are. And your prayer was answered. More than answered. It was surpassed. Do you know what I learned, Mrs. Margaret? God doesn't spare us from hardships, but He gives us the strength to turn them into opportunities." "That's true, and you turned your greatest humiliation into your greatest victory." That evening, Melissa was at home in her now larger and more comfortable apartment, which she had chosen to keep in the same Park Slope neighborhood. She didn't want to stray from her roots. She glanced at her Wharton diploma, now framed on the living room wall alongside other certificates and awards she had earned. But what moved her most was a photo of the first graduating class of the Melissa Johnson Foundation. Her phone rang. It was Brandon. "Good evening, Madam President. Sorry to call so late." "No problem, Brandon. What's going on?" "I just wanted to thank you again for everything. Today marks 2 years since I started working at the foundation, and I've never felt so professionally fulfilled. And I've never been prouder to have given you a second chance. Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "What made you believe I could change?" Melissa thought for a moment before answering. "Because I believe everyone has the potential to become better. Sometimes they just need someone to believe in them. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't even believe in myself. Thank you for proving me right." After hanging up, Melissa stepped out onto her apartment balcony, where she kept a small garden. She carefully watered each plant as she did every night. "Keep growing strong," she whispered to the plants, "and always remind me of where I came from." End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story of overcoming and transformation. Do you believe Melissa made the right decisions by forgiving and giving a second chance? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this one.